Hey everyone, I hope you were able to catch the first video of our Veggie of the Month series where we made that roasted zucchini. If not, you can just go to our Facebook group and just scroll down a little bit and it'll still be there. But this month we're going to be focusing on broccoli, which is a vegetable that everybody should be familiar with. And just from what I've seen, you guys are steaming it, boiling it, dipping it in a ranch, but I feel like that can get kind of boring if you're doing that over and over again. So today we're going to be making broccoli tots, which is one of my favorite things to have because I just love tater tots and I haven't met anybody that doesn't like them. So it's just a good way to make a classic snack or side dish, make it a little bit healthier. So that's what we'll be doing today. Alright, so for this recipe we'll be using frozen broccoli. I'm using frozen because it's actually a lot cheaper than fresh broccoli, and then you can get it all year round, which makes it just really convenient. So right here we have 2 cups of frozen broccoli. You could use fresh if you have that on hand too, that's completely okay, but pretty much all we're going to do is we're just going to drop it in some boiling water and just boil it for a couple of minutes just so it's soft enough where you can kind of stick a fork right through it. Alright, so now we have our cooked broccoli here, and once it's done cooking, a good thing to do is to shock it in some cold water, and that'll just stop it from cooking even further, because if it does that, then it's going to get really mushy and you don't want that. So I'm just going to give this a nice fine chop really quick, and I'm actually going to show you guys just how to hold a knife and just where to put your fingers, because when you're doing a fine chop like that, you're putting yourself at risk for slicing your fingers off, and you don't want that to happen. So as you hold it, you kind of want to tuck your fingers in and use your knuckles as a barrier, because that way when you're cutting, your knife won't run through your fingers. But if you had your fingers out like this, if you're not careful, you could really slice your finger off, so you don't want that to happen. Alright, so I'm going to finish chopping up the rest of this broccoli, and then so while I'm doing that, I'm just going to be telling you how much of the other ingredients we need for this recipe. So for the Italian breadcrumbs, we're using 1/3 of a cup. The panko breadcrumbs, also 1/3 of a cup. The cheddar cheese was 1/2 of a cup. And then the seasonings, I kind of just approximate it. It's kind of to taste, and if you like things more garlicky or if you like things with a little more pepper. But for the parsley, I used about a tablespoon for that. So, alright, so now I'm just going to add the broccoli to the breadcrumbs, the cheese, the eggs, and the seasonings, and we're just going to mix it all together. And this recipe is going to make for approximately 20 tater tots. So just want to keep that in consideration if if you're making this for a party, or if you're bringing it to a cookout or something, you might have to double the recipe. So basically all you just got to do is mix it up, get your hands dirty so that it's soft enough where you can kind of form it into a ball, and that's where you can get your tater tot from. So the benefit of this recipe is that it's not fried. Even the ones that you get in the freezer section at your grocery store, they pre-fry it first before they freeze it. So making it this way, you're cutting down on a lot of the fat, and it's just a way to add some vegetables to your diet. Alright, so now we're going to form these tots and put it on the baking sheet. So as far as oil, you just need a really thin layer on your sheet, just enough to kind of coat each corner of the pan, just to make sure it doesn't stick, but also it'll help the tots brown a little bit. So just pour the oil, spread it around with your fingers, and then we can start laying the tots down on this sheet. So the fun thing about this is it doesn't have to be exact, so when your kids are involved, they can kind of just make whatever shapes they want, which makes it kind of more interesting. But kind of just imagine a tater tot, and you want it to be about this kind of shape, and then you just lay it on there. Alright, so now that these tots are formed, we're just going to throw them in the oven at 400 degrees for 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes we're going to flip them over, and then we'll put it in for another 10 minutes, and then it'll be done. So when you're laying out the tots, you want to make sure there's enough room between them, because if they're really packed together, they're not going to cook evenly, and then they won't brown as well too. So right here I'm making 1 batch and it fits fine, but if you're making 2 or 3 batches, you want to just make sure there's a tots length of space between each. So alright, so after 10 more minutes, these tots are done, and you can see that there's a nice, really golden brown color on it. The cheese is nice and melted, so these are going to be really good. And what I really like about this recipe is that you can use it in a lot of different ways. You can have it as an after-school snack for your kids, or if you guys are watching the big game, you can make these and just have a nice little appetizer for you and your friends. There's a lot you can do with it. So just getting to the price and how much this costs, it was really inexpensive. A 2-pound bag of frozen broccoli from Giant Eagle was only $2, so definitely very affordable, and it keeps in the freezer for at least half of a year. And then the other things I kind of just had lying around, but the breadcrumbs you can get at Aldi's for only 90 cents each, so that's also a really good deal. So again, it's very inexpensive and it tastes great and it's healthy. So it's definitely not too expensive to eat healthy if you just kind of get creative and know what to make. So I'm gonna go enjoy these, and I hope you guys will too when you try it out. And then stay tuned for the next video next month.